So I'm pretty excited about this today because finally we're starting to get more autofocus lenses for the L-mount system. So if you have no idea what I mean by the L-mount system, every camera has a different lens mount that you can attach the lenses. Sony use Sony E-mount, Canon use RF, Nikon use the Z-mount, and then there's something called the L-mount Alliance, which is like Lumix or Panasonic cameras, Sigma, Blackmagic, potentially DJI as well, and they use something called the L-mount. My problem with the L-mount for the longest time is that there just has not been enough lenses compared to the E-mount system. The E-mount just has so many lenses. Any possible lens that you can think of, you can get it for the Sony E-mount. And finally, we're starting to just get a few more companies, specifically third-party companies that are coming out with autofocus lenses like this one by 7 Artisans. And this is exciting, not just because this lens is actually pretty good, but also it's very affordable and it just gives us more options for L-mount cameras. Now let's talk about this lens in particular. This is a 50mm f1.8 by 7 Artisans. So this is a third-party lens, and it is a 50mm f1.8, and it comes in, I think it's like $250 or something like that. I'll put it right here so that you can see the price there. The real question is, what are you getting for that amount of money? Well, you're getting a solid metal build. The whole lens feels great. On the lens itself, it's actually very, very simple. You have a focus ring, which is it's very smooth, but it's quite stiff. So, you know, that sort of thing is entirely down to just user preference. Some people like a looser sort of focus ring. So this one is relatively tough to turn, but it is very smooth. And then it also has an aperture ring, which is declicked. And then last thing it has is a little autofocus, manual focus toggle. And it is not weather sealed. There's no weather sealing on here. And it has a USB-C port for upgrading or updating its firmware. Lastly, on the front here, we get a 62mm filter thread on the front for attaching your sort of filters and all that kind of stuff, 62mm. So overall, very simple. I want to go over just a couple of cons first. I'm going to show a whole bunch of photos that I took with this lens in just a minute, but there are a couple of negatives. First off, let's just talk about the body. Main thing obviously being there's no weather sealing. That's just a little bit sad. I don't really understand why companies don't add a weather sealing gasket. I feel like it can't be that expensive to add it, but I know nothing about manufacturing lenses, so I have no idea. Now, another thing I think that would be nice is this aperture ring does feel good. It'd be nice to be able to click it or have the option for it to be clicked or declicked. And then the last thing is this little section where you can flick it to A. That means that you can control it with your camera, which is very, very handy. I really like that. There's barely any resistance between A and then 16. So if you want to keep it in A, which I prefer to actually just control it on the camera, so I usually tend to keep it in A, it's really easy to bump it and all of a sudden you're at F16, which is not what you want 99% of the time. So I wish there was a little bit more resistance between A, like the sort of camera control mode, and F16. Other than that, I mean, this does feel really nice. It's a great little aperture ring, but it'd be nice if it could be clicked, and then I wish it would have a bit more of a solid like clunk over to there, so it wouldn't sort of so easily just go back and forth. So here are a whole bunch of photos that I took with this camera and lens, Lumix S9, and the 50mm f1.8 by 7 Artisans on our trip over in Ireland. as you can see, I think it can render pretty nice photos. A couple of things that I want to point out. First off, autofocus performance was great. I thought it worked really well, no problems. There was a few that it would miss focus, but it wasn't anything drastic. Every camera and lens combo, occasionally you're going to miss some, but overall performance seemed really, really good for me. A couple of things that I did notice is one, flaring is pretty strong on this. It does lose contrast and flare pretty strong. I don't mind it. I do quite like flaring, but just something to be aware of. I also didn't have the lens hood on this, so that probably could have helped quite a bit, but I just wanted to keep the size down. You know, it looked pretty good. I do like the quality. I like the character of it. I think it looks pretty nice. It's just a good budget option for people who are wanting to get a nice portrait lens, which I think is great. One other thing that I think it's important to point out is any shots that I got, especially of like the water here at the Giant's Causeway, you can see that in sort of high contrast areas, there's a pretty severe amount of chromatic aberration on the highlights of the water there. So you're getting some pretty strong purple fringing, which I'm not a huge fan of that. So that's just something to be aware of whenever you're capturing sort of strong specular highlights, or if you overexpose, or if you have some very, very contrasty scenes, you are going to deal with a little bit of chromatic aberration. But overall, the thing I like about this is that it is just giving more Lumix shooters good budget options for autofocus lenses, especially for cameras like the Lumix S9, which I got this open box on Black Friday for like $1,100 after taxes. Threw this lens on top for like, what, $250? You got a really nice full frame look at f1.8 for under $1,500, which I think is a great price for the kind of images that I was getting. But obviously, I'll leave the rest to you. Do you think that it's a bad lens? Again, it's really important to take the price of the lens into consideration. Is the flaring too much for you? What do you think? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. The main reason I wanted to make this video is primarily just to point out that it's exciting that the L-mount are just getting more third-party lenses. And I do know of at least 2 other third-party companies who are working on getting autofocus lenses out for the L-mount system. So will the L-mount catch up to the Sony E-mount as far as the glass that they'll have available to them? Who knows? Maybe. That would be pretty exciting times. But I want to know what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments down below. But if you've enjoyed this video, do hit the like button, drop a comment down below, or maybe even subscribe as we continue to build this channel. I appreciate all of you for doing so, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.